My name is Ariel, 35 years old, and I spent 6 months saving $5,100 for my son Jake's 8th birthday. After years of disappointing celebrations, I promised him something special. When we walked into the venue, my heart stopped. The banner read, "Happy 8th birthday, Harry." My sister stood there with my nephew already opening presents. Mom shrugged, saying, "We thought you'd understand." Jake squeezed my hand and whispered, "It's okay, Mom. Maybe next year." Before I continue this story, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button, because what I did that night changed my family dynamic forever. The road to that birthday disaster started long before that day. As a single mother raising Jake on my own since he was 2, life had never been easy. I juggled 3 jobs most weeks: administrative assistant during weekdays, weekend shifts, at a local cafe, and online freelance work whenever Jake fell asleep. Every dollar I earned went toward keeping a roof over our heads, food on the table, and hopefully a small treat for Jake occasionally. His previous birthdays had been simple affairs. For his 5th birthday, we had cupcakes at the park with 2 friends from his preschool. For his 6th, a small gathering at our apartment with pizza and a movie. Last year, for his 7th, my car broke down the week before, and the repair costs ate through the birthday savings. We ended up with a candle in a store-bought cake at our kitchen table. Each time, Jake smiled and thanked me, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes when he heard his classmates talk about their elaborate celebrations. "Next year will be different, Jakey," I promised him, after blowing out those 7 candles. "I'm going to give you the best birthday ever." His eyes lit up, and he nodded, believing me completely. That night, I started a special savings account labeled Jake's 8th birthday. Every extra penny went into that account. I picked up extra shifts at the cafe, took on more freelance projects, and even sold some of my rarely used belongings. 6 months of overtime, cutting corners on everything except Jake's necessities, and declining any social invitations that would cost money. The account slowly grew $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. Jake watched me working late nights on my laptop, and sometimes brought me glasses of water without being asked. "You work so hard, Mom," he said one night, his small hand on my shoulder. "It's all for you, sweetheart," I replied, not mentioning that a significant portion of that work was for his upcoming birthday. My sister Natalie lived a very different life. Married to a successful investment banker, she had a sprawling house in the suburbs, 2 luxury cars, and a seemingly endless shopping budget. Her son Harry was 3 months older than Jake, and their birthday celebrations were always extravagant affairs. Bouncy castles, professional entertainers, custom-made cakes, and goodie bags that cost more than our weekly grocery. Budget. Our mother always made sure to remind me how generous Natalie was for inviting us to these parties. What she never acknowledged was how Jake would come home from these events quiet and withdrawn, comparing their lifestyle to ours. Or how Natalie would make subtle comments about my parenting, my career choices, or my appearance in front of everyone. "You should really try that new hair salon, Ariel," she'd say loudly. "They offer payment plans." Or, "Jake's shoes look a bit worn. I have some hand-me-downs from Harry if you need them." Our family dynamic was clear. Natalie was the golden child. I was the disappointment. Mom enabled this hierarchy at every turn. Our father had left when I was 12, and Natalie was 14, and afterward Mom had leaned heavily on Natalie emotionally while expecting me to be the strong one who didn't need as much attention. This dynamic continued into adulthood. When I got pregnant with Jake unexpectedly in my late 20s and his father disappeared shortly after, my family's response was predictable. Natalie offered sanctimonious advice about responsibility, while Mom sighed about what the neighbors would think. Neither offered practical help when I needed it most. Throughout Jake's childhood, I was expected to accommodate Natalie's family in various ways. We rescheduled our plans when Natalie wanted to do something. We gave up our seat at the table during holidays, when Natalie's in-laws decided to join last minute. We accepted Harry's hand-me-downs with mandatory gratitude while listening to Natalie detail how much each item originally cost. But Jake's 8th birthday was going to be different. By the time the account hit $5,000, I felt confident enough to start planning. Jake had developed a fascination with space and astronomy, spending hours at the library reading books about planets and constellations. The theme was obvious, and his excitement was palpable as I let him participate in the planning. "Can we have a cake that looks like Saturn, Mom?" he asked, eyes wide with wonder. "Absolutely," I promised, "with rings and everything." We found a venue called The Observatory, a modern event space with a domed ceiling where they could project stars and planets. It wasn't cheap at $5,100 for the full package, but it included everything: decorations, food, cake activities, and a short educational presentation about space by a local science teacher. I put down the deposit, marking the date 6 weeks in advance. Every night, Jake would add another item to his handwritten birthday wishes list. He wasn't asking for presents. He was listing experiences he was looking forward to. See a real meteorite. Learn about black holes. Show Bobby and Michael the star projector. His enthusiasm made every extra hour of work worthwhile. 2 weeks before the big day, I took Jake shopping for a special outfit. We found a dark blue button-down shirt with tiny silver stars embroidered on the collar and cuffs. He insisted on trying it on in the store, standing in front of the mirror with the biggest smile I'd seen in months. "I look like an astronaut in training," he declared. "The most handsome astronaut in the galaxy," I agreed, my heart swelling with love. The price tag was higher than I'd normally allow, but the joy in his eyes was worth every dollar. We sent out invitations to 15 of Jake's classmates, plus 2 neighborhood friends, and received enthusiastic responses from nearly everyone. Jake made a paper chain countdown, removing 1 link each night before bed. The anticipation in our small apartment was electric. For the first time, I felt like I was giving my son the celebration he deserved, something to match the wonderful, kind, brilliant boy he was growing into, something he could proudly tell his classmates about, something that for once might even outshine Cousin Harry's parties. I had no idea that this simple desire to give my son one special day would trigger a family crisis that had been brewing for decades. The day before Jake's birthday began with a flurry of last-minute preparations. I'd taken a rare day off work to ensure everything was perfect. Jake woke up, bouncing with energy, his countdown chain showing just 1 remaining link. "Tomorrow's the big day, Mom," he exclaimed, launching himself into my arms. "I couldn't sleep at all last night." "Me neither, Space Cadet," I admitted, ruffling his hair. Too many stars exploding in my brain. We spent the morning confirming details, double-checking the guest list, finalizing the playlist of space-themed music, and wrapping the small science gifts I'd purchased for the goodie bags. Jake insisted on helping with everything, his small hands carefully folding paper around miniature telescopes and glow-in-the-dark star stickers. "Do you think Harry will like the party?" Jake asked suddenly, his voice casual but his eyes watchful. I paused. "Harry isn't coming. Remember, he has soccer on Saturdays." This was a small mercy in my planning. My sister's son had a standing commitment that would prevent any awkward comparisons or competition during Jake's special day. "Oh, right," Jake nodded, looking relieved. "So it's just my friends." "Just your friends," I confirmed. "Your day, your people." Around noon, my phone rang. Mom's name flashed on the screen, and I briefly considered letting it go to voicemail. But years of conditioned response took over, and I answered. Hi, Mom. Ariel, good I caught you. Her voice had that familiar tone, brisk, businesslike, with an undercurrent of expectation. I was just talking with Natalie about tomorrow. My stomach tightened. What about tomorrow? Well, you know Harry has been feeling a bit under the weather lately, and his soccer game was cancelled due to the coach having a family emergency. I waited already, sensing where this was heading. Natalie thought it would be nice if Harry could join Jake's party. They're cousins after all, and birthdays are family affairs. The request hung in the air like a lead balloon. I looked over at Jake, happily organizing his space-themed playlist, completely immersed in his preparations. Mom, I've planned this specifically for Jake and his friends, I said carefully. The activities are all based on Jake's interests, and the guest list is already finalized with the venue. Surely they can accommodate one more child, Mom pressed, especially family. It's not just about numbers, I explained, keeping my voice level. This is Jake's special day. He's been looking forward to being the center of attention for once. What does that mean, for once? Mom's voice sharpened. Are you implying Harry gets special treatment? I closed my eyes briefly. I'm not implying anything, Mom. I'm just saying that Jake deserves his own celebration. Harry had his birthday party last month, and Jake wasn't even invited. That was different, Mom replied dismissively. It was at Natalie's country club, and they have strict guest policies. Of course they did. I took a deep breath. I'm sorry, but the answer is no. Tomorrow is about Jake. Harry can see him at Sunday dinner next weekend. A heavy silence followed. Then, well, I think you're being very selfish, Ariel, but it's your decision. The call ended, and I stood there for a moment, heart racing, but also feeling a strange sense of pride. I had stood my ground for Jake. It was a small victory, but it felt significant. An hour later, my phone pinged with a text from the venue manager, Lisa, just confirming the change in plans for tomorrow. All set on our end. My hands went cold. What change in plans? I immediately called the venue, drumming my fingers nervously on the counter while waiting for someone to pick up. The observatory events, this is Lisa. Hi, Lisa, this is Ariel Wright. I just got your text about a change in plans for my son Jake's birthday tomorrow. I didn't request any changes. Oh, Lisa sounded confused. I was told by a family member that there would be some adjustments to the theme and guest list. She said she was calling on your behalf since you were busy with work. My blood pressure spiked. What family member? What adjustments? I believe she said she was your sister. She mentioned adding a superhero theme alongside the space theme and adding about 10 more guests. She said it was going to be a joint celebration now. The room seemed to tilt around me. Natalie had tried to hijack Jake's birthday, and after I'd explicitly said no. Lisa, I never authorized any changes, I said firmly, working to keep my voice steady. The original plan stands exactly as I booked it. Space theme only. Original guest list only. Please disregard anything my sister told you. Of course, Lisa assured me, sounding embarrassed. I should have confirmed with you directly. I'll make sure everything is restored to the original plan right away. After hanging up, I stood in the kitchen, shaking with anger. Should I call Natalie, confront her? My instinct was to unleash years of pent-up resentment, but a glance at Jake stopped me. He didn't need to see me upset the day before his birthday. This was about protecting his joy, not confronting my sister. I decided to let it go for now, assuming Lisa would fix everything. I'd deal with Natalie after the party. The rest of the day passed in a blur of preparations. Jake helped me load gift bags into the car, carefully placed his special outfit on a hanger, and repeatedly asked if it was bedtime yet, so tomorrow would come faster. When I finally tucked him in that night, he was practically vibrating with excitement. "Mom, do you think the astronaut cake will have real sparklers on it?" he asked, clutching his favorite spacebook. "Absolutely," I promised, "just like shooting stars." "This is going to be the best day ever," he whispered, eyes already drooping despite his excitement. "Thank you for working so hard to make it happen." His simple gratitude brought tears to my eyes. "Anything for you, Starman." As Jake drifted off to sleep, I sat on the edge of the bed, stroking his hair and fighting a growing sense of unease. The incident with the venue had shaken me more than I wanted to admit. What if Natalie tried something else? What if something went wrong tomorrow? I pushed the thoughts away. Everything was confirmed, double-checked, paid for. Jake's perfect day was secured. Nothing and no one could take that away from him now. As I turned out his light, I had no idea how wrong I was. The morning of Jake's birthday dawned bright and clear. He was up before the alarm, already dressed in his regular clothes, saving his special star-collared shirt for the party. "Happy birthday, my 8-year-old astronaut," I sang, presenting him with blueberry pancakes topped with whipped cream stars. His face lit up as I placed a small wrapped gift beside his plate. "Can I open it now?" he asked, bouncing in his seat. "That's what it's there for," I laughed. He tore into the package, gasping, when he pulled out a junior astronomy book signed by a local astronomer I'd contacted months ago. "This is the best present ever." He hugged the book to his chest, then launched himself at me in a tight embrace. "The party will be even better," I promised. "We need to be at the observatory by 11:30 to check everything before your friends arrive at noon." Jake was practically levitating with excitement as we drove to the venue. He clutched his special shirt on its hanger, insisting on changing once we arrived so it stays perfect. I smiled at him in the rearview mirror, his joy infectious. We pulled into the observatory's parking lot at 11:25. I was surprised to see several cars already there, including a sleek black SUV I immediately recognized as Natalie's. My stomach dropped, but I kept my expression neutral for Jake's sake. "Looks like the staff is getting everything ready," I said lightly, helping Jake out of the car. "I can't wait to see the star projector," he exclaimed, practically skipping toward the entrance. We pushed through the double doors into the venue's foyer, Jake a step ahead of me in his eagerness. He stopped so suddenly that I almost ran into him. "Mom." His voice was small, confused. "Why are there Superman decorations?" I looked past him and froze. The space was decorated not with the planets, stars, and astronauts we had selected, but with garish superhero banners, balloons, and cardboard cutouts. A massive table at the center held a superhero-themed cake, and hanging across the main wall was a huge banner that read, "Happy 8th Birthday, Harry." Before I could process what I was seeing, Natalie emerged from around a corner, accompanied by my mother, Harry, and what appeared to be several of Harry's friends. Harry was wearing a Superman costume and holding a present with torn wrapping paper. "Oh, you're finally here," Natalie said, as if we were the late arrivals at someone else's party. "Harry's been so excited to open his presents." Jake's hand found mine squeezing tight. I felt him press against my side, shrinking into himself. "What is this?" I managed my voice, barely above a whisper. "Where are Jake's space decorations? Why does the banner have Harry's name?" My mother stepped forward, her expression a practiced mixture of reason and mild reproach. "Now, Ariel, don't make a scene. We thought it made more sense to combine the boys' celebrations. Harry's been so disappointed about his soccer games being canceled." "Combined," I repeated incredulously. "This isn't combined. This is Harry's party. There's nothing here for Jake. Natalie waved a dismissive hand. We kept some of the space stuff in the back room. The kids can go in there later if they want. But Harry really wanted a superhero theme. And the kids all prefer superheroes to boring stars anyway. Jake's grip on my hand tightened painfully. I looked down to see his eyes brimming with tears, though he was fighting valiantly not to let them fall. I didn't authorize any of these changes, I said, my voice gaining strength as shock gave way to anger. I spoke with Lisa yesterday. She was supposed to keep everything as originally planned. Oh, Lisa's not working today, Natalie replied smoothly. Marcus is handling the event, and he was very accommodating when Mom explained the situation. I turned to my mother. You did this. After I specifically told you no. She had the audacity to look offended. We thought you'd understand once you saw how happy Harry is. And it saves you money, too. Natalie covered the cost of the additional guests and the theme change. I don't care about the money, I hissed, conscious of Jake standing beside me. This was Jake's special day. His one special day that I've been saving for and planning for months. Jake doesn't mind sharing, do you, sweetie? Natalie directed this at my son, who looked down at his shoes, still clutching his special shirt on its hanger. It's okay, he mumbled the words, breaking my heart. At that moment, the venue manager, presumably Marcus, approached with an uncomfortable expression. Miss Wright, I understand there might be some confusion about today's event. There's no confusion, I stated firmly. I booked this venue for my son Jake's 8th birthday party with a space theme. I did not authorize any changes to the theme or guest list. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. According to our records, we received a call from a family member with authorization to make changes. They provided the security word on the account. I felt like I'd been slapped. The security word was Jake's middle name, something only family would know. Who made these changes? I demanded. I can't disclose that information, but it was processed with proper authorization, Marcus replied, then added apologetically. We've already set everything up, according to the new instructions, and the additional guests have begun to arrive. As if on cue, the door opened behind us, and several children in superhero costumes burst in, running straight to Harry with excited shouts. I noticed Jake's invited friends were nowhere to be seen. Where are Jake's friends? I asked, a new dread forming. Natalie's husband Tom approached, holding up his phone. I sent out a message last night explaining the change of theme and time. The party's starting at 1 now, not 12. Thought the kids would appreciate the extra superhero touch. He turned the phone toward me, showing a text sent to my entire contact list, apparently from my number, but obviously not sent by me. Natalie must have taken my phone at some point, perhaps during our family dinner last weekend, and copied my contacts. The violation of privacy was stunning. Jake tugged at my sleeve. Mom, he whispered, my shirt doesn't match the party anymore. It was such a small detail, but it was the thing that finally broke my composure. My son, who had been so excited about his astronaut outfit, now felt out of place at his own birthday party. This is unacceptable, I said to my family, keeping my voice level despite the rage building inside. You've completely taken over Jake's celebration without permission. Don't be so dramatic, Ariel, Natalie scoffed. Harry deserves a nice party too, and this venue is much better than anything we could book on short notice. The boys can share for 1 day. Share, I echoed. There's nothing of Jake's here to share. You've erased him from his own birthday party. My mother stepped closer, lowering her voice. You're making a scene. The children are watching. Just go with it for today and we can discuss this later. Discuss what I challenged. How you went behind my back. How you taught Jake yet again that his feelings don't matter as much as Harry's. That's not fair, Mom bristled. "We've always treated the boys equally." Jake's small voice interrupted our tense exchange. "It's okay, Mom," he said, his brave smile breaking my heart. "I don't need a space party. I can be a superhero too." Harry overheard and laughed. "You can be my sidekick. Sidekicks don't get to make decisions, though." Several of Harry's friends laughed along, and I watched my son's face crumple before he carefully composed it again. "See, they'll work it out," Natalie said dismissively. "Children are adaptable." I looked around at what should have been Jake's special day, the wrong decorations, the wrong guests, the wrong everything, and felt something inside me finally snap. Years of accommodating, of making Jake accommodate, of teaching him that his wants and needs came second to his cousins, crystallized into a moment of perfect clarity. This would not stand. Not today, not anymore. As Harry's friends continued to arrive, Jake retreated to a quiet corner of the room. He had carefully hung his special star-collared shirt on a coat rack and was sitting alone watching the superhero-themed celebration unfold without him. The venue staff had begun serving appetizers, mini hot dogs and pizza bites, instead of the space-themed asteroid meatballs and satellite sandwiches we had planned. I approached Marcus again, trying to salvage something of our original plans. "Is there any way we can at least get the star projector working in one section?" It was the thing Jake was most excited about. Marcus looked genuinely apologetic. "I'm sorry, Miss Wright, but the projector was cancelled as part of the theme change. We were told it would clash with the superhero aesthetic." He glanced meaningfully at Natalie, who was directing the staff on where to place Harry's presents. Tom, Natalie's husband, was walking around filming everything on his expensive camera. "This is going on my YouTube channel," he announced proudly. "Harry's Super 8th Birthday Bash." My mother approached Jake, handing him a plastic superhero mask. "Here, sweetie, put this on so you match everyone else." Jake accepted it silently, but didn't put it on, just held it in his lap. I was about to go to him when the doors opened again, and to my surprise, two of Jake's invited friends arrived, Michael and Bobby, from his class, looking confused in their space-themed t-shirts. Jake, they called, spotting him in the corner. They hurried over, showing him the astronomy books they'd brought as gifts. For the first time since we'd arrived, Jake's face lit up. Natalie noticed immediately and strode over. "Boys, the gift table is over here," she said, gesturing to the table, piled with Harry's presents. "And everyone's wearing superhero costumes today. Didn't you get the update?" Michael looked confused. "My mom said it was a space party. See, I brought Jake a book about Mars." "Well, plans change," Natalie said briskly. Harry and Jake decided to have a joint superhero party instead. Much more fun, right? Harry's opening presents now, if you want to watch. The boys looked at Jake, who couldn't meet their eyes. "But I got this for Jake, because he loves space," Bobby insisted, clutching his wrapped gift. Natalie's smile tightened. "That's very nice, but today we're celebrating superheroes. You can give Jake his gift later. Now Harry's about to play some games, and everyone's joining in." She shepherded the confused boys toward the center of the room where Harry was preparing to hit a Superman piñata. Jake remained in his corner, watching his friends being absorbed into Harry's celebration. I'd seen enough. I marched up to Natalie, careful to keep my voice low but intense. "This ends now. You had no right to change Jake's party." She rolled her eyes. "Don't be so sensitive. The kids are having fun." "Jake isn't having fun. This is his birthday that you've completely taken over." Well, Harry needed a proper celebration after his soccer tournament was canceled. The venue was already booked, and it seemed wasteful not to use it properly. "Wasteful," I repeated, incredulous. "I saved for 6 months for this day. And now you're saving money by sharing costs. You should be thanking me." Before I could respond, my mother made an announcement. "Everyone gather around for cake. Harry and Jake's superhero cake is ready." I looked toward the cake table. The elaborate Saturn-shaped cake I had ordered was nowhere to be seen. Instead, there was a garish red and blue sheet cake with Super Harry written in bold letters. Jake's name appeared in much smaller letters below, clearly added as an afterthought. Jake noticed, too. His small shoulders slumped further, and he didn't move from his corner. I walked over to him and knelt down. "Jakey, what do you want to do? This isn't what we planned. We can leave if you want." He looked up at me with eyes too old for his 8-year-old face. "Where would we go? Everyone's here already, and Grandma said I have to share." "This isn't sharing," I said gently. "And we could go anywhere you want. This day is supposed to be about you." He hesitated, clearly torn. "But my friends are here now." "Jake, come on, we're cutting the cake," Harry shouted from across the room. Jake stood reluctantly and moved toward the cake table. I followed, watching as Harry took center stage, wearing a cape and striking heroic poses while Tom filmed. My son stood awkwardly to the side, neither participant nor spectator, just an uncomfortable addition to someone else's show. "Make a wish and blow out the candles," Harry Natalie encouraged, positioning her son in front of the cake. "Wait," I interjected. "Jake should blow out candles too. It's his birthday as well." Natalie looked annoyed but nodded. "Fine." Harry let Jake blow out some candles too. Harry frowned. "But it's my special day." "You can share 3 candles with your cousin," Natalie told him, as if she were asking him to perform an extraordinary act of generosity. Jake looked at the cake, at the tiny section he was being allowed to claim on his own birthday. Something in his expression made my heart crack. "What flavor is the cake?" he asked quietly. "Chocolate with peanut butter frosting." "Harry's favorite," my mother announced proudly. Jake's face fell further. "I'm allergic to peanut butter," he whispered to me. "Remember." I felt the blood drain from my face. Jake had a mild peanut allergy, not life-threatening, but enough to cause hives and discomfort. My family knew this. They all knew this. "He can't have this cake," I said loudly. "Jake is allergic to peanut butter. You all know that." There was an awkward pause before my mother waved dismissively. "It's a very mild allergy. He can just have the ice cream." So at his own birthday party, my son can't even eat the cake. I was beyond incredulous now. "I got him his own cupcake," Natalie said, as if this solved everything. She pointed to a small, plain cupcake set aside on a separate plate. While this discussion was happening, Harry had already begun opening more presents, the cake momentarily forgotten. I watched in horror as he tore into a package that I recognized. It was the junior telescope I had carefully selected for Jake, wrapped in the space pattern paper we had chosen together. "Cool, a telescope," Harry exclaimed, pulling it out. "That's Jake's gift," I said sharply. "I bought that for him." Natalie had the grace to look momentarily embarrassed. "We just moved some of the gifts around since we were combining parties. Harry can share it with Jake later." Jake was watching his cousin handle the telescope he had been anticipating for weeks. His expression wasn't angry or even sad anymore. It was resigned, as if this was exactly what he had expected all along. He turned to me and whispered words that broke something fundamental inside me. "It's okay, Mom. I'm used to it. Maybe next year we can just have cupcakes at home." The defeated acceptance in his voice, the idea that my bright, kind son had come to expect disappointment as his due, was the final straw. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that something had to change. Not next year, not tomorrow, right now. I knelt down to Jake's level, looking him directly in the eyes. This isn't okay, I said softly but firmly. None of this is okay, and you don't have to pretend it is. His eyes widened, slightly surprise, replacing resignation. Do you want to stay here, or would you rather go somewhere else? Anywhere you choose. This is still your birthday. Jake glanced around at the party that should have been his, at Harry opening his gifts at the cake he couldn't eat, at the superhero decorations that had replaced his beloved stars. Can we really leave? He whispered, as if afraid to hope. Absolutely, I assured him. Your day, your choice. He thought for a moment, then nodded. I want to go. I gave him a small nod and squeezed his hand. It was time to stop allowing my family to steamroll over my son's happiness. It was time to put Jake first. Without another word to my family, I took Jake's hand and walked over to where he had hung his special star-collared shirt. I helped him gather it and the few space-themed gifts his friends had managed to give him before they were absorbed into Harry's celebration. As we moved toward the exit, I caught my mother's eye. She gave me a questioning look, which I answered with nothing but a steady gaze. No explanations, no justifications. No more allowing her to make me feel guilty for protecting my son. Ariel, where are you going? She called after us. We haven't done the cake yet. I didn't respond. Beside me, Jake walked with his head high, clutching his astronomy book and special shirt. They're leaving, I heard Harry ask loudly. But what about my party? Don't worry, sweetie, Natalie assured him. Your party will be perfect without them. The doors closed behind us, cutting off the superhero music and the sounds of celebration. In the parking lot, Jake looked up at me. Are they going to be mad? He asked softly. Probably, I admitted, helping him into the car. But that's not your problem or mine. Today is about you, not about making them happy. Once in the driver's seat, I turned to face him. So, birthday boy, where would you like to go? The day is still yours. Jake thought for a moment. Can we go to the Stellar Diner? The one with the constellation placemats? Absolutely, I smiled, starting the car. The Stellar Diner was a space-themed restaurant about 40 minutes away. We'd been there once before when Jake had gotten an excellent report card, and he had been fascinated by the cosmic decor and menu items, with names like Milky Way milkshakes and Orbit onion rings. As we drove, I pulled out my phone and handed it to Jake. Can you find the number for the observatory's billing department I need to make a call when we stop? Jake found the number, and when we paused at a red light, I called my credit card company. After verifying my identity, I spoke clearly. I need to stop payment on a charge from the observatory event venue. The services contracted were not delivered as agreed. The representative asked a few questions about the nature of the dispute, which I answered truthfully. I paid for a private birthday event with specific themes and arrangements. Upon arrival, I discovered unauthorized changes had been made, and the event was essentially given to another party. By the time we reached the Stellar Diner, the payment had been stopped, and I'd been advised to follow up with a formal dispute letter. I also made a quick call to book a room at the Hampton Inn, a modest hotel that had an indoor pool, something Jake loved but rarely got to enjoy. Are we staying at a hotel? Jake asked, excitement creeping into his voice for the first time since the party disaster. We are, I confirmed, with a pool and room service for dinner. His eyes widened. Really? Like in the movies? Really? Birthday surprise! Inside the Stellar Diner, we were seated at a booth beneath a mural of the solar system. Jake immediately began identifying the planets, his earlier disappointment, gradually giving way to enthusiasm. When the server came to take our order, I asked if they did anything special for birthdays. It's this young man's 8th birthday today, I explained. Well, happy birthday, Space Explorer, the server exclaimed. We've got a special cosmic sundae for birthdays with sparkler candles that look like shooting stars, and all our birthday guests get to add a star to our constellation wall. She pointed to a wall where hundreds of silver star stickers formed various patterns. Jake's face lit up. My own star on the wall? Absolutely. You can put it anywhere you want. We ordered space-themed burgers and asteroid fries, and Jake chattered about constellations and space facts throughout the meal. My phone buzzed repeatedly in my purse, but I ignored it. Today wasn't about my family's drama or expectations. It was about reclaiming Jake's special day. When the cosmic sundae arrived, complete with sparkler candles that fizzed like miniature comets, the staff sang a birthday song, and Jake beamed. He closed his eyes tightly to make a wish before blowing out the sparklers. "What did you wish for?" I asked, after the servers had gone. "Can't tell, or it won't come true," he replied, seriously, then leaned in and whispered, "But it already kind of did." After adding his silver star to the wall, he placed it in the Ursa Minor constellation, proudly explaining to the server that it was the little bear with the North Star at the tip of its tail. We headed to the Hampton Inn. At the hotel, Jake changed into his swimsuit faster than I'd ever seen him move, and we spent 2 hours in the heated indoor pool. He practiced his newly learned swimming skills, calling out, "Watch this, Mom," every few minutes. I sat on the edge of the pool, feet dangling in the water, watching my son reclaim his joy. When we finally returned to our room, wrapped in fluffy hotel robes, Jake flopped onto one of the double beds with a contented sigh. "This is even better than a party," he declared. I sat beside him, brushing his damp hair from his forehead. "I'm so sorry about what happened at the observatory, Jakey. That wasn't right, and it wasn't fair to you." He was quiet for a moment. Why does Harry always get what he wants? It was a simple question with a complicated answer. I tried to be honest without burdening him with adult dynamics. Some people think that their wants are more important than other people's needs. That's not right, but it happens. The important thing is that we know your feelings and your special days matter. Jake nodded thoughtfully. Grandma always says I have to share with Harry, but Harry never shares with me. I've noticed that too, I said carefully. And I want you to know that I'm going to do better at making sure you're treated fairly. He looked up at me with those wise eyes. Is that why we left? Yes. Sometimes the best way to stand up for yourself is to walk away from people who aren't treating you right. Jake seemed to process this. Then he sat up straighter. Can we order room service now, with those fancy covered plates? I laughed, relieved at the shift to lighter territory. Absolutely. What does the birthday astronaut want for dinner? We ordered cheeseburgers, fries, and chocolate milk, delivered on covered silver platters that delighted Jake to no end. He insisted on wearing his special star-collared shirt for our fancy dinner, and we ate picnic-style on one of the beds while watching a documentary about space exploration on the hotel TV. When the front desk called to say a dessert delivery had arrived for us, I was puzzled since I hadn't ordered anything. The staff brought up a small bakery box containing a cupcake with a single candle and a note. Happy real birthday, Jake. From Lisa at the observatory. Sorry about today. Jake was touched that the original venue manager had remembered him. We lit the candle, sang another birthday song, and he made a second wish before carefully sharing the cupcake with me. As Jake began to drift off to sleep surrounded by his few birthday gifts and wrapped in clean hotel sheets, he murmured, "This was the best birthday ever, Mom." My heart swelled. Despite everything we had salvaged the day, more importantly, I had shown Jake that he deserved to be prioritized and celebrated. After he fell asleep, I finally checked my phone. 37 missed calls, and 62 text messages from my mother Natalie and even Tom. The family group chat had exploded with accusations and demands for an explanation. "How could you embarrass us like this? Harry is devastated that you ruined his party. The venue is threatening to charge us extra for the changes. You need to apologize immediately." I put the phone down without responding. For once, their drama could wait until tomorrow. Tonight was about Jake, about peace, about finally breaking free from patterns that had hurt us both for too long. As I watched my son sleeping peacefully, I made a silent promise. This was just the beginning of our quiet rebellion. Things would be different from now on, for both of us. I woke early the next morning to find Jake already up, sitting cross-legged on his bed and paging through his new astronomy book. Sunlight streamed through the hotel curtains, casting a warm glow across his contented face. "Morning, Space Captain," I greeted him. "Sleep well." He nodded enthusiastically. "The beds here are so bouncy, and guess what? I counted 27 stars on the ceiling last night." He pointed up at the textured hotel ceiling, where with sufficient imagination one might indeed see star patterns. "Impressive astronomical observation," I replied, reaching for my phone. The missed call count had risen to 42 overnight, and the text messages continued to pour in. I scrolled briefly through them, noting the escalating tone of outrage. The latest messages indicated that my family had discovered the stopped payment to the venue. "What would you like for breakfast?" I asked Jake, setting the phone aside. "We can order room service again or hit the hotel buffet downstairs." "Buffet!" he exclaimed. "Can I get chocolate chip waffles?" "It's still your birthday weekend, so absolutely yes." As we enjoyed breakfast, Jake creating a precarious tower of waffles and fruit, I considered our next steps. A part of me wanted to continue ignoring my family indefinitely, but I knew that wasn't realistic or healthy in the long run. "Jake," I began carefully, "we need to talk about what happened yesterday and what we're going to do moving forward." He paused mid-bite his expression, turning serious. "Are we in trouble with Grandma?" "No," I said firmly. "We didn't do anything wrong. But there might be some uncomfortable conversations ahead, and I want to prepare you for that." He nodded, considering this. "Will I still have to go to Sunday dinners at Grandma's house?" The question caught me off guard. Sunday family dinners had been a tradition since before Jake was born, often tense affairs where Natalie dominated the conversation, and my mother lavished attention on Harry, while Jake sat quietly, trying to be as unobtrusive as possible. "Is that something you want to continue?" I asked, realizing I'd never actually questioned whether these dinners were good for him. Jake pushed his waffle pieces around on his plate. "Not really," he admitted in a small voice. "Harry always breaks my stuff and says it was an accident. And Aunt Natalie asks me questions about school, then interrupts before I can answer." His simple observations struck me like physical blows. How long had I been subjecting him to this treatment in the name of family? "Then we won't go anymore," I decided aloud. "At least, not for a while, until some things change." Jake's eyes widened. "Really? We can just not go?" "Really," I confirmed. "We get to decide who we spend time with, especially on weekends." His entire body seemed to relax at this news, making me realize how much tension he'd been carrying about these family gatherings. After breakfast, we checked out of the hotel and headed home. I had one more day off work before returning to my regular schedule, and I wanted to use it to get organized for the changes ahead. As we pulled into our apartment complex, Jake spotted his friend Michael riding a bike in the courtyard. "Can I go play with Michael?" he asked eagerly. "I want to tell him about the hotel and the diner." Of course, I agreed, grateful for the normalcy of kids playing after yesterday's drama. I'll call you when lunch is ready. Inside our apartment, I finally sat down to properly review the messages from my family. They followed a predictable pattern: initial confusion, then indignation, then outright anger, particularly when they discovered I'd stopped payment on the venue. The most recent message from my mother read, "The venue is threatening legal action if payment isn't resolved by Monday. You need to call immediately. Your behavior is affecting the entire family." I took a deep breath and formulated a brief, clear response. I paid for Jake's birthday celebration as agreed with the venue. The event I paid for was not delivered due to unauthorized changes. I've filed a formal payment dispute with documentation. Please direct the venue to contact me directly regarding any billing issues. Next, I created a new calendar entry for every Sunday for the next 6 months: Jake's Choice Day. Time reserved for whatever activities he wanted to do instead of the family dinners. I was just making a list of boundaries to establish when my phone rang, the school principal's number flashing on the screen. With a sense of foreboding, I answered. "Miss Wright, this is Principal Garcia from Franklin Elementary. I hope I'm not disturbing your weekend." "Not at all," I replied, puzzled. "Is everything all right?" "I wanted to give you a courtesy call. I received an unusual request from your sister this morning for an emergency family meeting regarding Jake's difficult home situation. She's asked to involve our school counselor and mentioned potential concerns about his well-being." I felt the blood drain from my face. Natalie was escalating beyond anything I could have imagined, attempting to use the school to paint me as an unfit parent. "Principal Garcia, I appreciate you calling me directly," I said, working to keep my voice steady. "There is no emergency or concern about Jake's well-being. What you're seeing is, unfortunately, a family disagreement being inappropriately brought into the school environment." The principal's voice softened. "I suspected as much. Jake is one of our most well-adjusted students, and his teachers have nothing but praise for your involvement in his education. I declined the meeting request, but wanted to make you aware." "Thank you," I said sincerely. "If you don't mind me asking, what specifically did my sister suggest was the problem?" "She mentioned concerns about Jake being isolated from family support and emotional instability in the home. Rather vague accusations that raised red flags for me about the request itself, not about your parenting." After thanking the principal again and ending the call, I sat in stunned silence. Natalie's willingness to potentially trigger a school welfare check or even a CPS investigation over a birthday party was stunning in its vindictiveness. This was no longer about hurt feelings or family drama. This was about protecting Jake from toxic relationships that could cause lasting harm. I opened my laptop and began researching family therapists and attorneys specializing in family law. I needed professional guidance on establishing and maintaining boundaries. By afternoon, I had scheduled a consultation with a family attorney for the following week and found a child therapist who specialized in family dynamics. I'd also drafted a clear email to my family, outlining my perspective on what had happened and my expectations going forward. The email explained that Jake and I would be taking a break from family gatherings while we worked with professionals to establish healthy boundaries. I detailed the pattern of Jake being treated as less important than his cousin, and made it clear that any attempt to use outside institutions, like his school, to pressure us would result in complete cessation of contact. I saved the draft, deciding to review it after speaking with the attorney. There was no rush to send it. My silence was already communicating volumes. When Jake came in for lunch, flushed and happy from playing with his friend, he asked if there had been any word from Grandma or Aunt Natalie. "They've sent some messages," I said carefully. but we're going to take some time away from family gatherings for a while like we discussed." He nodded, then asked thoughtfully, "Mom, are we still family, even if we don't see Grandma and Harry and everyone?" "Absolutely," I assured him, pulling him into a hug. "You and I are a family, a strong one, and we have friends who care about us too. Family isn't just about who you're related to, it's about who treats you with respect and love." That evening after Jake was in bed, my phone rang again. My mother. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. "Ariel, we need to talk about what happened," she began without preamble. "Yes, we do," I agreed calmly. "But first, did you know? Natalie contacted Jake's school, claiming there were concerns about his well-being." There was a pause. "She mentioned she might reach out to make sure Jake was okay after your episode yesterday." "My episode," I repeated incredulously. "Mom, she tried to trigger a welfare investigation because she's angry that I stopped her from hijacking Jake's birthday. Do you understand how serious that is?" "You're overreacting," she dismissed. "Natalie is just concerned." "No, she's retaliating. And I won't allow Jake to be used as a pawn in whatever game she's playing." "This isn't a game, Ariel. Family is important, and you're tearing it apart over a silly party." I took a deep breath. It wasn't just a party, Mom. It was a pattern that's been happening Jake's entire life. His needs being sacrificed for Harry's wants, and it stops now. "So, what? You're just going to cut us off?" Her voice rose with indignation. "We're taking a break while I consult with a family therapist and an attorney about establishing healthy boundaries. I'll be in touch when I'm ready to discuss next steps." "An attorney? Are you serious?" "After what Natalie did with the school? Absolutely. Good night, Mom." I ended the call and turned off my phone, emotionally drained but also strangely liberated. For years I'd been caught in patterns of accommodating and apologizing to keep the peace. Breaking free felt terrifying but necessary, not just for me but for Jake. As I checked on him one last time before bed, watching his peaceful, sleeping face, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead might be difficult, but it would lead to a healthier future for both of us. A future where Jake would know his worth wasn't determined by how others treated him, but by his own inherent value. The family group chat might have exploded, but something else had emerged from the wreckage. The foundation of a stronger, healthier relationship between my son and me, and the courage to demand the respect we both deserved. 6 months after the birthday party incident, Jake bounded through the door after school waving a paper excitedly. "Mom, I got picked to represent our class at the district science fair." He thrust the permission slip toward me, his face alight with pride. "Mrs. Peterson said my planet model showed exceptional understanding of astronomical concepts." I pulled him into a hug. "That's amazing, astronaut. I'm so proud of you." His confidence had blossomed remarkably over the past months. The quiet, often hesitant boy who tried to make himself invisible at family gatherings had been replaced by this enthusiastic child who raised his hand in class and made new friends easily. Much had changed since that fateful birthday. The consultation with the family attorney had been illuminating, providing clear strategies for establishing boundaries while protecting Jake from potential manipulation. The attorney had helped draft a formal communication to my family, outlining expectations for any future contact, including respect for our decisions, and absolute prohibition of using institutions like Jake's school to apply pressure. Natalie had responded with predictable indignation, threatening various forms of retaliation before eventually retreating into cold silence when her threats proved ineffective. My mother had cycled through guilt trips, anger, and finally grudging acceptance that our relationship would be different moving forward. Most importantly, Jake had been seeing Dr. Matthews, a child therapist, specializing in family dynamics, once every 2 weeks. These sessions provided a safe space for him to process his feelings about family relationships and develop tools for expressing his needs. Dr. Matthews says I'm getting really good at using my voice, Jake had told me proudly after a recent session. I practiced saying, "This matters to me" 5 times in the mirror this morning. We had established new traditions to replace the Sunday family dinners. Jake's Choice Day had become a cherished weekly adventure. Sometimes we visited museums or parks. Other times we simply stayed home, building elaborate Lego structures or conducting safe science experiments in the kitchen. For Jake's half-birthday in February, we'd started a new celebration tradition, just the two of us at the Stellar Diner, where he added another star to the constellation wall. The staff remembered him and made a fuss, bringing a special dessert with a half-birthday candle. "This is our special place now," Jake had declared carefully, placing his new star near his original one in Ursa Minor. I'd also joined a support group for people recovering from difficult family dynamics. The group met twice monthly in a community center, and the stories shared there had helped me understand that our situation wasn't unique, and more importantly, that prioritizing Jake's well-being over maintaining harmful family patterns was the right decision. Healthy boundaries aren't rejection, they're protection, the group facilitator often reminded us. Those words had become something of a mantra for me on difficult days. Work had improved too. I'd confided in my direct supervisor about our family situation when I needed to take time off for Jake's therapy appointments, and to my surprise, she'd been incredibly supportive. She even adjusted my schedule to allow for more flexibility, eliminating the need for some of my weekend shifts at the cafe. "You're one of our most reliable employees," she'd explained. "If shifting some hours helps you take care of your son, it's worth it to us." With the reduced weekend work, I found myself with more energy and presence for Jake. We started a small container garden on our apartment balcony, Jake's idea, after learning about photosynthesis in science class. Watching the seedlings grow became a daily ritual, with Jake meticulously recording their progress in a notebook decorated with star stickers. "Plants are kind of like people," he observed one evening as we watered the sprouting tomatoes. "They need the right stuff to grow properly." His casual wisdom often took my breath away. About 4 months after the birthday incident, my mother reached out with a hesitant request to meet for coffee, just the two of us. No Natalie, no Harry. After consulting with the attorney and my support group, I agreed to a short meeting in a public location. To my surprise, she arrived without the usual arsenal of guilt trips and accusations. Instead, she seemed subdued, even reflective. "I've been thinking a lot about Jake's birthday," she said, after we'd exchanged awkward pleasantries, "about how I handled it, about how I've handled a lot of things." I waited, expecting the conversation to veer toward justifications. Instead, she continued, "I've always struggled with Natalie's intensity. It was easier to give in than to deal with her reactions. But that wasn't fair to you, or to Jake." It wasn't a full apology, but it was more self-awareness than I'd ever heard from her. We talked for nearly an hour, covering ground we'd never broached before. Her difficulties after my father left, her fear of conflict, her tendency to take the path of least resistance with Natalie. "I'd like to try to have a relationship with Jake again," she said eventually. "On your terms, whatever boundaries you need." We established a careful arrangement. Short, supervised visits once a month, always in public places, or at our apartment. Never at her house where Natalie might appear unexpectedly. No gifts without prior discussion. No commentary on our lifestyle or choices. Jake approached the first visit with understandable caution, but warmed up when my mother showed genuine interest in his science fair project, asking thoughtful questions and actually listening to his answers. Grandma seems different, he observed afterward. Less rushy. Rushy, I asked. Yeah, like she's not always rushing to make other people happy instead of listening. His perception was remarkably accurate. Natalie, on the other hand, had remained entrenched in her position. When she learned about my mother's visits with us, she escalated her campaign of subtle retribution, spreading distorted versions of events among extended family, occasionally sending passive-aggressive text messages, once even accidentally running into us at a store, and making a show of ushering Harry away for his protection. These incidents bothered me less and less as time passed. The attorney had helped me document everything in case the situation escalated again, but mostly I found myself pitying Natalie's inability to recognize the damage her behavior caused to her own relationships. Today, as Jake excitedly planned his science fair project, I marveled at how far we'd come. The journey hadn't been easy, but the results were undeniable. Jake's therapist had noted significant improvements in his self-esteem and emotional expression. His teachers reported more classroom participation and stronger peer relationships. Most importantly, the shadow of anxiety that had often dimmed his natural brightness had lifted. I'm thinking of doing my project on the life cycle of stars, Jake explained, sketching diagrams at the kitchen table. From nebula to supernova. Mrs. Peterson says, I can use glitter for the stardust if I'm very careful not to get it on the floor. I smiled at his enthusiasm. That sounds perfect. We can get supplies this weekend. Later that evening, after Jake was asleep, I sat on our small balcony among the growing plants, reflecting on everything that had changed. The most profound shift wasn't in our external circumstances. We still lived in the same apartment, I still worked the same jobs, our budget was still tight. The real transformation was internal. I had finally learned that protecting my child wasn't selfish, it was necessary. That setting boundaries wasn't cruel, it was caring. That choosing Jake's well-being over family approval wasn't breaking family bonds, it was building healthier ones. The morning after Jake's birthday party disaster, when I'd walked out with him from that venue, I hadn't just been leaving a ruined celebration. I'd been walking away from patterns that had hurt us both for years. It had taken courage I hadn't known I possessed until Jake needed me to find it. My phone buzzed with a text from a member of my support group checking in about the next meeting. I responded with confirmation and added, celebrating 6 months of better boundaries and a happier household. As I prepared for bed, I peeked in at Jake one more time. His room was transformed from 6 months ago. Now decorated with star charts, he'd made himself science awards from school and photos of our new traditions and adventures. On his bedside table sat a framed picture of the two of us at the Stellar Diner on his half-birthday, both smiling widely, truly happy. The journey of healing wasn't complete. Perhaps it never would be entirely. Family dynamics shaped over decades couldn't be entirely rewired in 6 months. But we had made a start, a significant one. We had broken free from expectations that dimmed Jake's light and limited his potential. We had established that his feelings mattered, that his birthday mattered, that he mattered. Most importantly, Jake now knew something I wished I'd learned much earlier in life, that sometimes family isn't defined by blood or obligation, but by respect and love. That sometimes the bravest, most loving thing you can do is walk away from people who can't see your worth. That you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. The lesson had come at a high price. Family relationships strained, painful confrontations, endured difficult truths faced. But watching Jake bloom in the space created by those boundaries confirmed it was a price worth paying. I had chosen my son that day at the venue, and I would keep choosing him every day, in every decision. And in doing so, I had somehow found myself as well, stronger, clearer, more centered than I'd ever been. What would you have done in my situation? Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between family expectations and what you knew was right? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life experiences. Remember, setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's often the most loving thing you can do both for yourself and for those who truly matter in your life. Thank you for listening, and I wish you courage on your own journey.